When desire crosses the line, obsession takes over. He wanted a fling. She wanted a future. Now, no one is safe. One reckless night opens the door to his worst nightmare. Meet the Gallagher family. Dan Gallagher, a successful lawyer, basks in the comfort of family life. His wife, Beth, gentle and devoted, tends their young daughter, Ellen, with quiet grace. Their New York home hums with the kind of happiness that seems untouchable. But beneath this picture of domestic harmony lies the seed of temptation. At a crowded book launch, in the swirl of voices, champagne glasses, and polite laughter, Beth fusses over her hair, but Dan leans close, assuring her it looks perfect. Beth and Hildy part with them. Dan and Jimmy drift off in the opposite direction. Jimmy's eyes catch Alex Forrest in the crowd. He greets her with charm, but she slices him down with icy indifference. Jimmy smirks, convinced she's only playing hard to get. Poor fool, mistaking a warning for a challenge. Moments later, Dan crosses paths with Alex at the bar. He assures her smoothly he isn't here to hit on her. She admits she hates men who come on too strong. He defends Jimmy lightly. He's harmless, just a little insecure like everyone else. Their conversation turns professional. She reveals she's an editor at Robbins & Hart. Dan smiles. His firm handles all their legal work. Surprising then, he has never seen her at the office. She replies, she's only been there a couple of weeks. But before the air between them can linger too long, Beth reappears and beckons him. Dan breaks away, following his wife and friends, leaving Alex behind with eyes that already linger too long. The next day, Beth and little Ellen leave for the weekend to visit her parents and tour a dream house in the countryside. Dan stays behind. Duty calls. Dan is called into Robbins & Hart. Fate conspires. Alex is summoned to the same meeting, beaming at the sight of him. Afterward, in the rain-soaked street, Dan wrestles with his umbrella. She steps in, helping him flag a cab, but none will stop. So they wait out the storm together, slipping into a nearby bar. Over drinks, she probes his world. "What's the strangest case you ever handled?" she asks. Dan tells her, when his mother once asked him to represent her in a divorce against his father. He had refused, saying family law wasn't his field. It had saved him from tearing himself in two. Alex laughs, enchanted by his honesty. He compares his work to being a doctor. People tell him their secrets, and he has to keep them. She leans in. "Are you discreet?" "Yes, I am." "So am I." She whispers, answering a question he never asked. The tension sharpens. She admits she had a date that night, but stood him up for Dan. "So here we are," she says slyly. She presses him about his wife. He admits Beth is away in the countryside. "Is that why you're having dinner with a strange lady?" "Nothing wrong with having dinner with anyone," he insists. "Not yet," she says, with intent. They circle each other like fire and gasoline. Honesty becomes flirtation. Flirtation becomes confession. Desire bursts. Their bodies collide, wild, reckless, unstoppable. From the kitchen to the bedroom, their passion burns raw and unrestrained. Later, they spill into a nightclub, dancing until the world blurs. On the streets, they wander hand in hand, Dan wearing the mask of freedom no one suspects. But the mask cracks in the shadows of the elevator, where Alex clings to him again, fierce and unyielding. They stagger into her apartment, consumed, their bodies speaking a language neither intends to silence. The next day, Dan returns home. He calls Beth, her voice warm, her questions simple, yet each one cuts deeper than he can admit. She says she called the house severally. He lies, fumbling, claiming he was with Bill. Beth mentions she'll be staying one more day. Relief flickers across his guilty face. Then Alex calls. Her tone sharp, tinged with hurt. She says he left while she was still asleep. She hates that. Dan insists he left her a note. She presses him to come over. He resists with flimsy excuses, work, walking the dog. Yet her persistence wears him down. Soon, they are outside, running with the dog, but playing more with each other than the animal. Two adults regressing into reckless teenagers, drunk on stolen time. Dan fakes an injury. Alex panics, convinced he's had a heart attack. She runs to him, breathless, terrified, only to realize it's a trick. He laughs. She joins, but her laughter hides a shadow. She reveals her father died of a heart attack when she was a child. A wound that never left her. A payback for tricking her. Her father is still alive. Back in her apartment, opera fills the air as she cooks. Dan confides, voice soft, almost childlike. He recalls seeing this very opera with his father when he was 5. How frightened he was when told the woman on stage would die if her lover left her. He remembers that as the rare moment his father was kind. Alex listens, visibly moved. For her, it is more than a story, it's a crack in his armor, a glimpse into his soul. Dinner comes. Alex studies him, eyes sharp, words deliberate. Why are all the interesting men always married? She asks. Dan counters, they're only interesting because you can't have them. She pushes further, tell me about your marriage. He admits, 9 years together, blessed with a lovely daughter. I'm a lucky man. But her next question pierces him. Then why are you here? The air stiffens. The spell shatters. Alex softens, recalling the night before. She wants to see him again, to know where she stands. Dan insists it's impossible. He's married, but still, he doesn't walk away. Instead, they tumble back into bed. When it's over, he tries to leave. But Alex rages, furious at being discarded. A tantrum, raw and manipulative. Dan is shocked. He thought she understood. This was temporary, fleeting, nothing serious. Adults seizing an opportunity and moving on. She doesn't see it that way. His patronizing reassurance only makes her bristle. She orders him out. Yet a second later, she's weeping, begging for a proper goodbye. And then, blood, her wrists slit. The opera he once described suddenly comes alive before him. Panic grips him. He tends to her wounds, realizing he cannot leave her like this. Extreme as it is, Alex has anchored him to her world. A dangerous tether forged in desperation. Once calm, he leaves, but not without promising to call. Back home, Dan rearranges the bed, an actor covering his tracks. Moments later, Beth and Ellen return. She says she loves the house. The next day, he visits it himself, liking what he sees. A family man, planning a future, but shadows still follow him. At work, Alex is waiting, sitting calmly in the lobby, as though she belongs. She apologizes for the night before. She thanks him for saving her. Then, casually, insistently, she asks if he'll accompany her to a concert. Dan declines, calling it inappropriate, but her presence lingers like smoke. That night, Dan is with his family and friends, warmth, laughter, stability. Meanwhile, Alex sits alone in her apartment. A parallel life, barren and hollow. Arthur, Dan's boss, is impressed by his courtroom performance. He hints at promotion. Dan's life, on the surface, shines brighter. But Alex digs deeper into his peace, pestering his secretary Martha with endless calls. Frustrated, Dan confronts her, cuts all ties with her, no more calls. Yet, like a ghost, she reappears. During dinner with family and friends, she calls again, then hangs up when Beth answers. At 2 a.m., she calls once more. Dan pretends it's a colleague, but Alex whispers, "You left me no choice." She demands to see him. At their meeting, he unloads his frustration. She listens, then drops the bomb, she's pregnant. He denies, insists it's impossible. She assures him he can call her doctor. Coldly, she refuses his suggestion of abortion. For her, this is not a mistake, it's a family. For him, it's the destruction of everything. Dan, desperate and cornered, sneaks into Alex's apartment while she is away, but finds nothing that could untangle the noose tightening around him. He turns to Jimmy, his trusted friend and a family attorney. The truth lands heavy. Dan calls Alex's doctor, and the confirmation chills him. She is indeed pregnant. Jimmy warns, this is serious. Alex, however, is not the type to fade quietly. When she discovers Dan has changed his number, fury becomes her fuel. But obsession finds its way. She tracks him down. One evening, Dan enters his apartment to a sight that freezes his blood. Alex, sitting casually with Beth, chatting as though they were old acquaintances. She claims it's their first meeting, then slyly reminds him they crossed paths at a party. Beth is charmed, speaking of children and the family's planned move, while Dan stands lost in a fog of dread. Later, in private, he demands answers. Why come to his home? Why torment him like this? Alex's reply is firm, her eyes blazing. She will not stop until he claims his role as father. She will not be ignored. If he denies her, she will tell Beth everything. The line between passion and destruction is now burned away. Dan's anger flares, his warning sharp, dire consequences will follow if she dares. Her threat lingers. She even dials Beth, but hangs up before the storm can break. Days later, vengeance takes shape. Dan returns to find his car corroded, eaten alive by battery acid. Rage and fear coil in his chest. On his drive home, Alex's voice floods the car stereo from a tape she left behind, her rants spilling raw. Unhinged, unaware that she is already shadowing him. From a distance, she watches with venomous longing as Dan enjoys a quiet moment with his wife and daughter in their new home. Dan, cornered, visits the police. Yet pride shields his shame. He pretends he's speaking of a client. He begs them to warn Alex, but the response is discouraging. Push her further, and the storm may break harder. Then, horror walks into his home. Beth returns one evening to the stench of something cooking. Her heart stops when she discovers Ellen's pet rabbit boiling in a pot. Alex's cruel handiwork. The child is shattered. Beth trembles in devastation. She demands the police be called, but Dan resists. He knows exactly who is behind it. Finally, he confesses. The affair, the mistake, the one night that now threatens to consume them all. Beth, wounded, orders him to leave. Before departing, he makes one final call to Alex. His voice is cold, stripped of charm. He has told Beth everything. If Alex dares touch her family again, Beth swears there will be consequences. A dangerous game has shifted. Alex, no longer hidden, has crossed the threshold from passion to terror. Beth drives to Ellen's school, expecting her daughter's smile. But dread strikes. The teacher says Ellen has already left, escorted by someone else. A stranger to them. Panic claws through Beth's chest. She searches frantically, her mind spiraling, until in her haste she crashes, an accident born of desperation. Meanwhile, Alex strolls calmly with Ellen at a playground, her madness masked by gentle play. Hours later, she delivers the girl back home, as though performing a favor. Dan visits Beth in the hospital, grief and fury colliding inside him. When he leaves her bedside, he goes straight to Alex's apartment. He storms in, forces his way through her door, and unleashes his rage with his fists. But mid-assault, clarity strikes him. He halts, trembling at the abyss he nearly crossed. Alex, however, is relentless. She charges with a knife, slashing at him. Dan wrestles her down, rips the weapon from her hands, and flees into the night. Dan wastes no time. He rushes to the police and reports her. Kidnapping Ellen gives them cause to arrest her. But when they search, she is nowhere. She has vanished like smoke. Beth is discharged at last, her strength fragile, but her spirit unbroken. She prepares a bath, seeking a moment's calm. When suddenly the air chills, Alex is there. Blade in hand, eyes wild. Bizarrely, she claims it is her house, not Beth's. She taunts, sneers, proclaims Dan's love belongs only to her. He couldn't kill me, she boasts, because our bond is undeniable. Then, with a shriek, she lunges. Beth fights back, shoving her down. the knife flashing dangerously between them. Upstairs, Dan hears the chaos and bursts into the bathroom. He arrives just in time to see Alex stab him, the blade sinking deep. Gritting his teeth, Dan grips her, shoving her into the overflowing tub. He holds her under, water thrashing violently until at last she goes still, or so he believes. But madness is not so easily drowned. Alex surges up once more, charging straight at Dan for the kill. And then, the final shot. Beth, pale but resolute, pulls the trigger. The bullet tears through Alex's stomach. She collapses, her reign of terror ended. The police arrive, and with quiet certainty, they rule it self-defense. The storm is over, but its scars remain. Dan thought it was just one night, a harmless escape, but Alex made sure it became his worst nightmare. In the end, the Gallagher family survived, yet scarred forever, a reminder that some temptations come with a price too deadly to pay. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.